Here we are on the front of our Keystone Hideout 240BH. We're going to be doing a technical walkthrough on our unit, showing you the different components that are on it. Your unit may vary by name brands. If you want specific information on the name brand that's on your unit that wasn't shown today, you can find that in the Helpful Hacks section of our YouTube channel. It also provides much more information on these particular components as well, if you want to take a deep dive into all that. For now, we'll start touching on all the components in our unit. Starting with the front, we have our 7-way plug. Our 7-way plug transfers our power for our blinkers, our brake lights, and our running lights over to the lights on our camper. It also has a charge line for our battery system. It will charge up our battery while we're traveling down the road. Here we have our manual ton jack. This manual ton jack system, pretty simple and easy, up and down. It can be upgraded to a power jack system that would be 12-volt operated and run off of your battery. We have dual propane tank system right here. This has a dual propane regulator that is auto changeover. That dual propane regulator, whether it's swapped to the left tank or the right tank, whenever that tank is gone dry, it will automatically swap over to the other one, giving you a red indicator on the dial, letting you know that that particular tank is empty and it is on the use of the other one. If that secondary tank is empty, of course your system will run dry of propane and both tanks will need to be swapped out. Behind that, we have our battery storage center right here, as well as our battery disconnect behind it. Our battery disconnect is used whenever we store our unit. If we want to basically disconnect that battery, we turn that switch to the off position. If we are charging our unit when we store it, we can leave that battery disconnect on. Otherwise, that battery is not going to charge during that period. Here on the driver's side of our unit, we have our access to our pass-through bay here. We'll see a black cover that has our inverter prep for it. That inverter prep can swap our battery power from 12 volts to 110 on our unit. In the event we are stopped somewhere, we need 110 power, but we don't have a plug-in, that inverter system can provide you with that. So the wiring is already there. We just need to buy the inverter for the upgrade. Next is our Girard tankless water heater system. This provides you with endless hot water for showers, sinks, whatever. It is a gas operated appliance, so your propane will have to be on for that. We'll go over further operation when we go inside to the operation panel for that. Here we have our freshwater connection. Our freshwater connection, if we remove this cap, provides us with a little hole to put our water hose in. Just our regular water hose at our house or whatever, stick it in there, turn it on, and it will start filling our fresh tank. Our fresh tank can be monitored from the inside on the panel. We push that button and it lets us know what level of water we are at. Now we fill it to whatever desired amount we want. We would use this when we're at a dry camping area, meaning we don't have a faucet to hook up to at the campground for our city water connection. We kick that 12-volt water pump on and it'll provide water to all our fixtures inside of our unit. When we don't need that water or we don't want to haul it around with us, we can drain that water out, provided by this white hose down here at the bottom. We uncap it and the water will drain out of that tank. Do this so we don't have added extra weight on our unit. We also want to drain it out when not in use because we don't want to leave that water in there stagnant. Below that, we have our black tank flush. Our black tank flush is used for our sewer system that we'll get to when we move to the rear of the unit, but understand that that is where that's located. We'll touch more on that here shortly. Our city water connection. If we have a water connection at the campground or wherever we're staying, we hook that water hose up. We can put an inline filter on it if we want, and we hook our hose connection up here and turn that water on, and that will supply water to our unit. We'll also notice on the four corners of our unit are stabilizer jacks. These stabilizer jacks are weight rated and they are for stabilizing only, not to level your unit. You can level your unit by putting stacker blocks under the tires as you back up to level your unit from left to right, and you can put blocks or run that jack up and down in the front to level it from front to back. And then you want these jacks down in this even diamond shaped form. This will help distribute the weight throughout the unit. Once again, just slight pressure on them, enough to lift the unit just a little bit, and this will stabilize your unit and reduce the movement in it. They are not levelers and they shouldn't be overextended. This will cause damage to them that the manufacturer will not participate in. So please make sure you are using them properly and as intended. Moving down to the rear of our unit on the driver's side, we notice our vent up here. This vent is a range hood vent. So from the inside over our stovetop, we can turn that fan on. This is where that air will exhaust. It does have 2 tabs on it that you need to open up for that air to exhaust out of that door. Whenever not in use, you want to close those tabs so no insects, rodents, or anything will build a nest in there. Generally, when we're storing our unit, we do that. Here we have our 30 amp twist plug. Our 30 amp twist plug provides power to our unit. We can turn left and pull it out, and to reinstall, we line our prongs up, put it in, slight turn right, and then we put our little retainer ring on there to keep that plug from falling out. Now, I want to make sure that no appliances are on, like our air conditioner or anything like that, whenever we go to plug our system in, because it can cause a surge to that system. We also want to make sure that we plug in this twist lock in first before we plug it into our shore power at our power pole. This just helps with any arcing or anything at the plug, and once again making sure our appliances are off as well. Here is our Suburban furnace exhaust system. Nothing to really look at out here, just know this is where the exhaust is, and you'll generally have some hot air coming out of it. Here at the rear of our unit, we have our dump station. Indicated by the handles, this one being gray and this one being black, that indicates which tanks they are. We have our gray tank. Our gray tank is where our sink and shower water go, and this is where we would open that valve to drain that tank out. Now, if we're hooked up at a campground and we have a sewer hose location that we can dump into right there, we can go ahead and hook that hose up and leave that gray tank valve open all the time and allow that water to constantly drain out when in use, so we don't have to keep running out here and dumping that out whenever it gets full. Our black tank, however, we want to keep that closed whenever we are using it. We don't ever want to allow the liquids out of that tank unless we are dumping or flushing our system out. Even when we store it, we want a couple of gallons of clean water in there. The reason is, if we let the water drain out of here, the sewage that gets dumped into that tank from our toilet will dry up. So we want to keep that valve closed all the time. The procedure for dumping: we have our hose hooked up, we're ready to dump, we open that valve, we let it dump. Now, everything's not going to come out of there, of course. That's where our black tank flush comes in. That hose connection right by our city water connection, we hook that up, and it's got a sprayer nozzle on the inside that will spray throughout that tank. Now, it's not going to cover everything in that tank, but it does a pretty decent job and blows everything to this end right here to flush out your system. When you're done and satisfied with flushing out that system, close this valve off, and you want to add a couple of gallons of water in that system. You can do it from your toilet by holding down that valve right there, or running your black tank flush for about 30 to 60 seconds as well, and just adding some water to that tank. When you're done, you want to go to your toilet and add some chemicals to there as well. This will help clean that system while you're traveling down the road as well, and get any dirt, debris, or anything else in those tanks down off the sidewall, and also help it decompose with the chemicals that you added. Behind me here, under our J-wrap, we'll notice a red and blue line. That red and blue line are our low point drains if we ever want to get all the water out of our pipes in preparation for winterization so they don't freeze. Here on the back of our unit, we have our cable coax connection right here. This is where we'll hook up our part cable to if it's provided, and we can go in the interior and scan for our cable channels. Up above, we are prepped for a Furrion backup camera system. The wiring is already there. You just need to purchase the camera and monitor for that system. We also have our Lippert on-the-go ladder system mount up there. This is for a telescopic ladder provided by Lippert. We would have to purchase that, and easy storage in our compartment. We want to use it, we open it up, and we put it on there to gain access to our roof. Now, why do we need to gain access to our roof? Well, it's a rubber roof, and we also have sealant up there. We need to be checking that sealant every 60 to 90 days to make sure there's no deterioration, cracking, or peeling of that sealant. If there is, we need to go ahead and seal over it. This is considered customer maintenance. If we allow water into our unit due to lack of maintenance, the manufacturer is not going to participate in the repairs. You want to make sure that your unit stays in good condition for years to come, so check that sealant every 60 to 90 days. You also need to check your rubber after trips and make sure no tree limbs scratched, scraped, and poked any holes in it while traveling down the road. We also have sealant down our corner trims, around our lights, our fixtures on the side. Anywhere where we put a hole in the side of the unit, there's going to be sealant around it. So we need to check that sealant for cracking, peeling, and so on as well every 60 to 90 days. It's just like changing the oil in your car. We're just checking the sealant on our camper. On our bumper, we have our full-size spare mounted right here, and also our bumper can be used for storage. We have caps on each end that we can pull out, and we can store our sewer hose in there. Clean that hose out real good, store it in there, and put a cap over it, and you don't have to worry about putting it in your front bay, causing a mess. Our front passenger side, we have more access to our pass-through bay, and we also have another stabilizer jack. Like I said, in the four corners, we have our two in the rear as well. Stabilizers only, not levelers. Here we have our 12-volt powered awning, as well as our 12-volt awning lights under here to provide lighting underneath. Our awning is ran by a 12-volt motor. Push a button, run it out, push a button, run it in. A couple of things that we need to be aware of on our awning is it is a sunshade only, not a rain shade, not an umbrella. So anytime we have bad weather coming in, it's raining or anything like that, we need to roll this awning in. If it's windy, we need to roll this awning in. Anything that can damage it due to any kind of act of nature, act of God, this will cause you to have an insurance claim, not a warranty claim. So make sure that you're rolling that awning in. If you're leaving your camper for an extended period of time, roll the awning in just to be sure. Another thing that we need to do with our awning is we need to pitch it, meaning we need to lean it left or right or front to rear, whatever. We can lean it in the rear or we can lean it in the front. In order to do that, we have these tabs up here on the arm. By here, we can pull it down to gain a little bit easier access. Squeeze those two tabs and our awning arm will slide down, and now we're pitched to the front. This is for any AC runoff. Our AC is going to have water that runs out of it due to condensation. They may get in that gutter rail, it may run off into our awning. This allows that to drip off of our awning. Any light dew or anything that's on that awning, it allows that water to run off. If we don't do that, that water can pool up in the middle of the awning and collapse on us, and once again, provide us with an insurance claim that we do not want. And before we go ahead and roll our awning in, we need to make sure we squeeze these two tabs and put that awning back in the proper position before we roll it up. That leads us to our entry door. Our entry door has friction controlled hinges. This helps our door from being able to be slammed shut by the wind, so you'll feel a little resistance on that door when you open and close it. Now we also have our screen door on here. We can just unlatch it from that regular entry door, lock it in, and we have a screen door for our entry. To relatch, just squeeze it up against our entry door and it'll lock in. We have our entry steps here to store. We just lifted each pivot point and store it. To pull it down, we grab those bars and fold it back out. Now we do have pivot points or hinges right there. We want to make sure we're lubricating these with silicone spray, not WD-40, because that will attract dirt, dust, and grime while we're traveling down the road and cause more problems than you would think. So silicone spray only whenever you're lubricating those. Under our awning, we have a location for our outdoor TV for that coax we can hook up to. We get air or cable channels, and we also have another outlet. That outlet is GFCI protected, meaning that if it's ever tripped, we want to go to our GFCI outlet inside our unit. We'll cover it when we get inside on the location of that. We want to reset it and see if that regains power at our GFCI protected outlet. Here we have our control center right when we walk into our unit. We'll notice we have multiple tanks right here on our meter system. Your unit only has one black and one gray. This is just a generic panel they put in all of their units. So here we have our fresh tank. Over here we'll see a meter light up to let us know how much is in that system, our battery meter, and of course our gray and black tanks throughout our unit. Here we have our 12-volt water pump. Whenever we have water in our fresh tank and we are wanting to provide water to our faucets, remember, no city water connection, we'll kick that pump on. And when we have a city water connection, or if that tank is empty, we want to shut that off. Here we have our entry light, provides lights for the interior of our unit. Our awning light here is our awning light outside under our awning, and we have our awning retract and extend button to be able to extend and retract that awning. Also at our entry, we have our Girard tankless water heater system. This is where our control panel is. We kick it on and we can run that temperature up or down with the arrows here on the left. We can change from Celsius to Fahrenheit as well. Whenever we turn our hot water on at our faucet, we'll notice a couple of icons pop up. At the bottom right, you'll see a shower head that lets you know that water is being used in your unit. Off to the left, you see a fan flow meter. This means that the water heater is being initiated. And in the middle, you'll see a little gas flame. This lets us know that the flame has lit and that water is heating. We'll also notice our output temperature up at the top is now a lower temperature because that's our output temperature coming out of the water heater, and will slowly increase to the desired temp. This system will only run for 20 minutes at a time. Once it shuts off, to reset it, just turn the hot water off and turn it back on, and it'll kick back in. Great thing to remember about any of our propane systems, such as our tankless water heater or our furnace that we'll go over in a minute, is we want to make sure that we bleed air out of our systems before we try to operate these to avoid any error codes. We'll cover that step whenever we get to our stovetop. Here for our entertainment area, we have our mount for our television, and we have our coax connection where our antenna booster and our Wi-Fi power is located. Our antenna booster is for when we are scanning for antenna channels only. We want that light on. When we are scanning for cable channels, we want to go ahead and kick that off so it doesn't scramble the channels that we are getting from the cable at the campground. Here on the right is our Wi-Fi power. Now we have an Air Antenna 360 line guard. This provides us with the option to be able to upgrade to a router system providing amplification of our Wi-Fi system at the campground, or we can log on with a cellular company and be provided a SIM card that would give us Wi-Fi wherever we go. You can leave that system on all the time or shut it off. Not much to cover in our front bedroom. We do have storage under the bed here in the front. We have another backer for our television in here, and we have a coax connection with an outlet for that TV. Here we'll find our thermostat for our Suburban gas operated furnace. Once again, another gas operated appliance. Want to make sure we bleed the air out of the system so we don't go into any faults. This is manually controlled. We take this dial up at the top, we slide it to that warmer knob until that furnace kicks on, and that chooses our appropriate temperature. System will kick on. Want to shut it off, slide it over and the system will shut off. Your warm air is going to be coming through the vents on the floor of the unit. They're not going to come out of the rooftop, so keep that in mind. That's where you'll be looking for the heat to come out. We'll notice by our entry door we have our COLP detector. This is a safety device to alarm us if any hazardous gas is entering our unit. The alarm will alert and you need to exit your unit. You want to test the alarm on this system at least once a month to make sure it's operating properly. Same thing with your smoke detector. Make sure the battery is changed out and working properly. And you also want to ensure that your fire extinguisher is filled as well. In our kitchen area, we have our standard 110 microwave, and we have that range hood vent. Remember, the vent on the outside we need to make sure is open when we use it. If we kick that fan on, and we also have our 12-volt light right here to provide light. We have our 2-burner stove, glass cooktop over the top of it to provide us with more counter space. When we're traveling, we need to make sure that that is down and in a travel position. Now the stovetop right here, we would simply, now the stovetop right here has a button on the side. We can turn it on, add some lighting for our knobs. We turn it and push it down to provide us ignition on our stovetop, and our stove will light. Now the key tip that we talked about earlier, bleeding the air out of our propane system before we operate our other appliances. We want to do that here at the stovetop. Anytime you pull your unit out of storage and you had your propane tanks off, you're going to end up with air in your system. Anytime you change your tanks, you're probably going to end up with air in your system. So I always suggest to customers, before you go hit the campground, you turn that propane on and supply propane to your lines. You come over to the stovetop and you turn it to that high on your burners and you light them up. This can take anywhere from 30 to 60 seconds depending on how big your system is or how much air you have trapped in it. You want to do that here because it allows the most air and propane out of that gas valve, and just keep holding that igniter until that system lights. Once it lights, you're looking for a nice clean blue flame, nothing popping, nothing orange, and then you have more than likely got all the air out of your system. From that point, go over to your other appliances and then you can operate them with little to no issues and not have any faults on them. Behind me we have our GE 12-volt refrigerator, a control knob here in the bottom box to go from cold to colder, and of course we have our freezer as well. Now these units do not have drains on them. So we need to make sure that once we are done using our unit, it is going to defrost if we shut our system down. We need to get all the water out of this freezer using a towel or something. And we also need to wipe down our fridge box, any moisture that's in there, maybe even leave them cracked to air out. This will help reduce the opportunity for mold and mildew to grow in here. And also, if you leave water in that freezer area, it can and will leak out and damage the wood around your refrigerator. And that is not going to be considered a warranty. It is only going to be customer pay. So avoid that by getting all the water out of that freezer. Very important tip there. Down here at the bottom, we have our control center for our 110 and 12 volt system. This is where you'll find your 110 breakers for all of your appliances and your fuses for all your 12 volt components. Down below that, we have a little grid right here. You'll hear a little fan blowing behind that. That is for our converter system. Our converter system is basically a battery charger that helps our 12 volt system stay charged up whenever we're plugged into our shore power. Our bathroom is fairly cut and dry. We have our shower. We have an on-off knob here at the shower head. If we just push that button, it will turn it off. This is used whenever we're trying to conserve water. If we're dry camping, you have your gray tank, you're trying to conserve the amount of water you put in there. You have your fresh water, you're trying to conserve the amount you use if you don't have a dump station or a water hookup wherever you're at. So to do that, you go ahead and jump in the shower, you find that sweet spot for the hot water, and you go ahead and rinse down, and you want to shut it off. That way you can soap up and you can kick it back on. You don't have to mess with all the knobs, and find that sweet spot again for your hot water, and you can rinse off. Now I'll give you a quick hint. Whenever you first turn it on, it is going to be a short, like 1 second spout of cold water. So turn it to the side, and then your warm water is going to be coming out of that system. Now we do have an exhaust over our shower here. It is a 12 volt fan. I suggest you go ahead and run that whenever you're in the shower. That way it will exhaust the steam out of here and lower the opportunity for mold or mildew to end up in your bathroom. We have our RV toilet right here. We have the up and down valve to run that toilet. It's important with this system, if we're doing number one, just putting liquids down here, we can just quickly flush that pedal and it's fine. If we're doing number two with solids, we want to hold that pedal down just a little bit and allow water to fill up in this bowl without our valve opening up. If we do this that way, whenever we flush those solids, it will go straight down to the tank. If we don't use enough water, it could cause issues with the system clogging. We only use RV toilet paper in our black tank system. That means that toilet paper can be biodegradable and flush down our system. We also want to make sure we're putting our chemicals in here too, and using the appropriate items to keep that black tank well maintained. We don't want to put any other items that we might put in our regular household toilet down there, just our sewage and our toilet paper and our chemicals and nothing else. You can cause some issues with your drainage if you do. Over here we have our main GFCI outlet. That main GFCI outlet has a test button and a reset button. To test it, we just hit that test button. This should shut off power to all GFCI protected outlets, and you can reset it by hitting that top button right there for a reset. If it happens to trip on its own due to over amperage or water or something like that, we can just come over here and straight hit that reset button. You will generally have a light indicator on them letting you know whenever it is actually powered up and operational. We have our rooftop air system. This particular one is a Furrion. It's controlled by our ceiling assembly right here. We have off, fan, and cool. Fan is just going to circulate air in our unit. Cool is actually going to cool that air. And the heat optional button wouldn't work on here because we don't have that heating element from the factory installed on here. If that's something you want to add, you can. The heat option is going to be on that Suburban furnace on the thermostat on the left. Here we have our thermostat from cold to colder, and we have our dump station. This is where our cold air is going to come out. So we want to keep that open on this system. If we close it off, that cold air has nowhere to go. We also have a filter on here we want to keep clean from time to time. Make sure that we're blowing that out, wiping it down, and keeping it clean so we're not restricting the flow of air to our AC. Well, we hope you found that resourceful, but wait, there's more information on our Great American RV YouTube channel. This channel right here, find the playlist Hap's Helpful Hacks. We go over different products in this unit, and we'll take a deeper dive with more diagnostics, more information, as well as helpful tips when you're out camping.
Tell your buddies, tell your friends, like, share, subscribe, do all those awesome things on YouTube, TikTok, wherever you found us. And keep watching here at Great American RV Superstores, where we bring the how-to you.